It was the sound of glass shattering that made her drop the hymn book. For a split second, the Sunday morning sunlight streaming through the stained glass windows made the blood on the carpet look like a red reflection. But it wasn't a reflection. It was warm, fresh, and spreading fast. And the man lying in it, face pale, lips trembling, was the pastor everyone in town had trusted with their sins. People think evil always comes in shadows, that it creeps in through alleyways wearing masks. But I've learned it often comes smiling, shaking your hand, asking how your week was. And sometimes, it stands behind a pulpit, preaching forgiveness while hiding a secret it would kill to protect. Reverend Samuel Holt had a way of making every sermon feel personal. His deep baritone voice, steady eyes, and soft pauses made you believe he was speaking directly to you. The congregation adored him. He was the man who had baptized their children, married their daughters, and prayed over their dying parents. In the quiet town of Millers Creek, population 3,742, Pastor Holt wasn't just a preacher. He was the moral anchor. But anchors, as everyone knows, can sink a ship just as easily as they steady it. Mara Wilson, the church's choir director, had been around long enough to know that the pastor's smile lingered just a fraction longer when it was directed at her. She tried to brush it off at first. Small-town rumors could grow legs fast, but late-night text messages about urgent church business didn't feel like business. And then came the gifts. Nothing extravagant at first, an antique hymn book, a framed scripture for her office, but they escalated. A delicate gold bracelet, a perfume bottle that smelled like vanilla and warm smoke. By the time he kissed her for the first time in the church parking lot, she had stopped wondering if it was wrong. But if Mara thought she was the only one keeping the pastor's secret, she was wrong. Elena Holt, Samuel's wife, was the kind of woman who made other women uncomfortable. Not because she was cold, but because she could read people too easily. Her quiet smiles masked the fact she noticed everything. The way Samuel's phone face down on the table seemed glued to his palm. The slight pause when Mara's name came up in conversation. The faint scent of unfamiliar perfume clinging to his shirt after late counseling sessions. Elena had said nothing. She was a pastor's wife. Silence was sometimes a form of prayer. But inside, her silence was growing teeth. The Sunday everything broke apart had started like any other. The church smelled of fresh lilies, the choir rehearsed under Mara's direction, and Samuel prepared his sermon on the dangers of temptation. Midway through the service, Mara's phone vibrated in her pocket. She didn't dare check it, until she saw Elena across the aisle staring straight at her. Not just looking, staring. When the service ended, the congregation mingled in the foyer. Samuel greeted everyone with the same polished warmth, but when his eyes met Mara's, they flickered just enough for Elena to catch it. 15 minutes later, Mara was in the choir room packing up sheet music when the door opened. It was Elena. "I think we need to talk," Elena said, voice steady. Mara's hands froze over the hymnals. "About what?" "About my husband. And about how much blood you're willing to see spilled before you walk away." The words were ice, but the look in Elena's eyes was fire. Before Mara could respond, there was the sound of raised voices from down the hall. A crash. A man's grunt. Then the glass shattering sound. By the time they reached the sanctuary, Samuel was on the floor, his white shirt blooming with red. His hand trembled as he tried to press down on the wound near his ribs. "Call an ambulance," someone screamed. But Elena didn't move. She just looked at Mara. And in that moment, Mara knew. Elena already knew exactly how this was going to end. Subscribe now and turn on notifications so you never miss a twist in this deadly love triangle. The paramedics worked in tense silence, their gloves slick with Samuel Holt's blood. Mara stood frozen near the back pew, hands trembling, trying to convince herself it wasn't her fault. Across the aisle, Elena stood perfectly still, her gaze locked not on her husband but on Mara. In that moment, Mara felt it, not just suspicion but ownership. Elena looked at her like she was already hers to destroy. Millers Creek Hospital smelled faintly of antiseptic and overcooked coffee. Hours after the ambulance pulled away from the church, the emergency room waiting area buzzed with whispers. The pastor's incident, as people had started calling it, spread faster than the nurses could shush the crowd. Mara sat in one of the corner chairs, her coat wrapped tightly around her even though it wasn't cold. She hadn't gone home, hadn't even washed Samuel's blood from her hands. She could still feel its tacky warmth clinging to her palms. Elena hadn't sat down once. She paced, silent and unreadable, pausing only to accept updates from the doctors. When the surgeon finally emerged, tall, balding, eyes heavy, he explained Samuel had survived emergency surgery but would be heavily sedated for the next 24 hours. The relief that rippled through the room felt hollow to Mara. She wasn't sure if she was relieved for Samuel, or terrified for what he might say when he woke. Because the truth was, Mara had been in his office just last night. It had been one of their private counseling sessions, a euphemism both of them understood too well. The church's counseling room smelled faintly of sandalwood and old paper. Samuel had been restless, pacing behind his desk, speaking in half-sentences. "You have to trust me," he had said, sitting finally, leaning forward with intensity. "You and I were meant for each other. You know that, don't you?" Mara had smiled, but her chest tightened. Samuel's charm was undeniable, but so was the recklessness in his eyes. "Samuel," she had whispered, "Elena? She's not part of this," he had cut in, voice sharp. "She doesn't understand me the way you do. She never has." What Mara didn't realize was that Elena had been standing in the hallway outside the whole time. That memory gnawed at her now as she sat in the hospital waiting area. "Mara." The sound of Elena's voice pulled her back. She looked up, startled to find the other woman standing over her, eyes clear and calm. "We should talk," Elena said. It wasn't a request. They walked out into the cool night air, the street lamps casting long shadows over the hospital's empty parking lot. Elena lit a cigarette, inhaling slowly before she spoke. "I've known about you for months," Elena said flatly. "You think you've been careful, but you've left fingerprints all over him." Mara's heart hammered. "Elena, I don't want your excuses," Elena interrupted, flicking ash to the ground. "I want you to understand something. Samuel is not who you think he is. He's not a victim in this. And if you're not careful, you're going to be the one who ends up bleeding next." Mara's lips parted, but no words came. Elena's expression didn't change. "I'm giving you a chance," she continued. "Walk away. Disappear. Or you'll regret it." Then just as suddenly Elena turned and walked back inside, leaving Mara standing under the buzzing streetlight, her breath clouding in the cold air. In the days that followed, the small town fed on the drama like starving dogs. Prayer circles sprang up. The church secretary told anyone who would listen that she'd seen Mara's car parked outside the parsonage late at night. Mara tried to stay away from the hospital, but Samuel called her from his private room 2 days later. "They won't let me have visitors," he said, his voice low. "But I need you, Mara. I need you to know I'll fix this. For us." Her pulse quickened. "Samuel, someone tried to kill you. What if?" "I'll handle it," he interrupted. "Trust me." But when she hung up, a thought crept in like a draft through a cracked window. What if it wasn't just someone? What if it was Elena? That thought took root and grew fast. The next Sunday, Mara skipped church and instead drove past the Holt home. She saw Elena through the kitchen window, smiling as she poured coffee for a man who wasn't Samuel, someone tall, dark-haired, with a military haircut. They laughed together like old friends, but the intimacy in their body language made Mara's stomach knot. The realization hit hard. Samuel wasn't the only one keeping secrets. Later that night, a text came from an unknown number. "You're in over your head." No name. No explanation. Just that single sentence. Mara stared at it for a long time before deleting it, but it didn't matter. The words had already burned themselves into her mind. And deep down, she knew, someone in Miller's Creek had decided she wouldn't live to see the truth unravel. Subscribe now and turn on notifications so you never miss a twist in this deadly love triangle. The note had been slipped under Mara's apartment door sometime during the night. No envelope, no signature, just a single sheet of paper folded twice. Inside, scrawled in uneven black ink, were 5 words. "You're next. Don't doubt it." Mara held the note in her trembling hands for a long time before she realized she hadn't taken a breath. Her apartment was quiet except for the low hum of the refrigerator. She crossed the living room and locked the door. Again. She checked the windows. Every shadow outside felt like it was watching her. Miller's Creek was the kind of town where people left their doors unlocked, where the postman knew which days you'd be home. But now, to Mara, it felt like a hunting ground. She thought about calling Samuel, but the thought made her hesitate. He was still in the hospital, guarded, his visitors strictly monitored. Besides, the note's message didn't just scare her. It made her wonder if Samuel's version of the truth could be trusted at all. That afternoon, Detective Carl Jennings came knocking. Jennings was a tall, soft-spoken man with a lined face that always looked tired, even at the start of the day. "Mara Wilson?" he asked when she opened the door. "Yes." He held up his badge briefly before stepping inside. "I have a few questions about the morning of the incident." "I'll get right to it. You were seen entering the choir room minutes before Samuel Holt was attacked. What were you doing there?" Mara explained, rehearsal materials, cleaning up after service, Elena coming in to talk. She didn't mention the warning Elena had given her. Something in Jennings' eyes told her to keep that detail to herself. You and Reverend Holt, Jennings continued, you're close? Mara hesitated. I work with him closely. Choir, events, church functions. Jennings said, scribbling something in his notepad. And his wife. Mara forced a shrug. We're polite. Jennings looked up from his notes, meeting her gaze. I'm going to be honest with you. There are whispers in town. Affairs, arguments, money problems. You might want to be careful whose side you're on. When he left, Mara's mind was spinning. Money problems? Samuel had never mentioned anything about that. But if the police were sniffing around, maybe there was more to this than a jealous wife and a reckless affair. Later that evening, Mara decided to confront Elena. She drove to the Holt home, pulling up under the dim porch light. Elena opened the door before she could knock. You shouldn't be here, Elena said flatly. I got a note, Mara said, holding it up. Under my door. No name. Just this. Elena glanced at it, then handed it back without a flicker of emotion. Then I'd suggest you take it seriously. Was it you? Mara asked. The faintest smile tugged at Elena's lips. If it was me, you wouldn't be standing here asking. The silence between them stretched. Then Elena added, Samuel has debts. Bad ones. People who don't like to wait for their money. You think you know him, Mara, but you don't know who he's been meeting after dark. Mara's chest tightened. Debts? What kind of debts? Ask him yourself, Elena said, closing the door in her face. That night, Mara sat in her car outside the hospital, watching the glowing windows of Samuel's room from the parking lot. She knew visitors weren't allowed, but she had to see him, had to ask. She managed to slip past the front desk when a group of nurses came through with a gurney. Samuel was awake, pale, and hooked to IVs, but his eyes lit up when he saw her. Mara, he whispered. Samuel, she said quickly, Elena says you have debts. Bad debts. Who's after you? His expression darkened. She's lying. Trying to scare you. Then tell me the truth, Mara pressed. He hesitated, then glanced toward the hallway as if someone might be listening. There's a man. Victor Kane. He's not the forgiving type. But it's handled. Just stay away from Elena. She's not as innocent as she looks. Before she could respond, footsteps approached. A nurse came in, frowning at her presence. She was escorted out without another word. When she got home, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number again. You can't save him. No greeting. No explanation. Mara sat in the dark for a long time after that, staring at the message. For the first time, she began to wonder, was the real danger Samuel, Elena, or someone neither of them had mentioned? Subscribe now and turn on notifications so you never miss a twist in this deadly love triangle. The photo was old, faded at the edges, curling like it had been hidden away for years. In it, Samuel Holt stood beside a man Mara didn't recognize, both grinning, both holding shovels. But it wasn't the smiles that chilled her. It was the thing half buried in the dirt between them, a black duffel bag, unzipped just enough to show the corner of a blood-stained cloth. Mara found the photo tucked between the pages of a hymnal in the choir room. At first, she thought it had been left there by mistake. But as she studied it, her pulse began to race. She slipped it into her bag just as the sound of footsteps echoed in the hallway. Elena appeared in the doorway, eyes locking on Mara instantly. You're early, Elena said. I like to prepare, Mara replied, her voice tight. Elena's gaze flickered to Mara's bag, then back to her face. Careful what you carry around, Mara. Some things aren't meant to be found. Mara's fingers clenched the hymnal tighter. What is this, Elena? Who's in this picture with Samuel? Ask him, Elena said, turning to leave. If he tells you the truth, maybe you'll live long enough to regret knowing it. That night, Mara couldn't shake the image. She printed a copy from her phone and studied every detail. The overgrown grass, the slant of the trees, the way Samuel's hand rested protectively on the duffel. The next morning, she visited the hospital again. Samuel looked weaker, but his eyes sharpened when she showed him the picture. Where did you get that? He asked, his voice low. Does it matter? Who's the man? What's in the bag? Samuel glanced toward the hallway, then back at her. That man is Victor Kane. And the bag is why someone wants me dead. He hesitated before continuing. Years ago, Victor and I, before I was a pastor, we ran jobs. Smuggling, cash drops, sometimes worse. That day, the bag held $50,000 in cash from a job gone wrong. Blood money. Literally. Mara's stomach turned. So this isn't about Elena. It's about you. It's about us now, Samuel said. Because if Victor thinks you know, he won't stop at me. That afternoon, Mara returned home to find her apartment door ajar. Inside, nothing seemed stolen, but every drawer had been opened, every cabinet emptied. On her bed sat the printed copy of the photo. Across it, in thick black marker, was written, "Bury it or be buried." She called Detective Jennings immediately. He arrived within 20 minutes, taking in the scene with quiet calculation. "Looks like someone's trying to scare you," he said. "Or send a warning." "It's working," Mara admitted. Jennings' expression was unreadable. "Do you trust Holt?" Mara hesitated. "I don't know anymore." "Then be careful," Jennings said. "Sometimes the person you're protecting is the one holding the shovel." That night, Mara sat alone in her apartment, the weight of the truth pressing down on her. She had stumbled into something bigger than an affair, something that could cost her more than her heart. Somewhere in town, a man named Victor Kane knew her face, knew her name, and believed she had a piece of his past. And in the shadows, Elena Holt was still watching, waiting. "Your turn. What do you think is in the rest of that duffel bag?" Drop your guess and make sure you're subscribed with notifications on as we unveil the truth. The pounding on Mara's door was fast, sharp, and unrelenting, like whoever was on the other side wasn't just knocking but trying to break in. Her phone sat on the coffee table, buzzing with an incoming call from unknown number. She knew without answering that if she picked up, the voice on the other end wouldn't be asking questions. They'd be giving orders. Mara backed away from the door, her bare feet silent on the hardwood floor. The pounding stopped suddenly. The silence was worse. She grabbed her phone and glanced at the call screen. Unknown number again. Against her better judgment, she answered. "You've got something of mine," the man's voice said. Low, calm, dangerous. "I want it back." "I don't know what you're talking about," Mara lied. A soft chuckle came through the line. "The photo, the bag, it's all connected. You have no idea how deep you're in, sweetheart. Bring it to the old sawmill tonight. Midnight. Come alone. Or I'll collect it from you, piece by piece." The line went dead. She didn't have to guess who it was. Victor Kane had finally stepped out of the shadows. Her first instinct was to call Jennings. But something told her the police might not be fast enough. She needed someone who knew Kane's world. That meant Samuel. She raced to the hospital. Samuel's room was dark, lit only by the glow of the monitoring machines. His eyes opened slowly when she entered. "He called me," she whispered. "Victor. He wants me at the sawmill. Midnight." Samuel's jaw tightened. "Then don't go. He's not bluffing, he'll kill you." "Then tell me how to stop him," she said. Samuel closed his eyes for a long moment. "There's a second bag, still buried where that photo was taken. That's what he really wants. If you get there first." Mara shook her head. "I'm not digging up a crime scene." Samuel's gaze hardened. "If you don't, you're digging your own grave." By 11, Mara found herself in the outskirts of town, the road to the old sawmill lined with skeletal trees. The night air was sharp, the silence heavy. She parked far enough away that her headlights wouldn't give her away. Inside, the sawmill was a maze of rusting machinery and shadows. She could hear faint dripping somewhere in the distance, each drop echoing like a countdown. "Mara." The voice came from above her, Victor Kane stepping out from the shadows of a catwalk. Tall, broad, face like carved stone. His eyes locked on her. "You have one chance," he said. "Where is it?" She swallowed. "I don't know." Victor descended the metal steps, his boots clanging. "Lying to me is a bad habit. People don't keep it for long." Before he could reach her, a second voice cut through the air. "Leave her." It was Elena. She stepped into the dim light from the opposite side of the room, a pistol in her hand. Victor smiled, not in surprise but recognition. "You always did know how to make an entrance." "Step away from her," Elena said. "Or what?" Victor asked. Mara's heart pounded. She realized in that moment that she wasn't sure whose side Elena was truly on, and if she guessed wrong. The standoff lasted only seconds before a noise from outside shattered the tension. Tires screeching, doors slamming. Flashlights cut through the broken windows. "Police." Victor turned and vanished into the shadows before anyone could stop him. Elena lowered the gun but didn't put it away. Jennings was the first to enter. "Mara, you okay?" She nodded shakily. But as they left the sawmill, she caught Elena watching her with an expression she couldn't read. It wasn't relief. It was something colder. That night, Mara couldn't sleep. She had survived, yes, but Victor was still out there. The second bag was still buried somewhere. And Elena Holt, was still holding something back. If you were Mara, would you trust Elena after tonight? Tell me your gut answer, yes or no, and make sure you're subscribed with notifications on, because the final reveal is coming and you won't want to hear it secondhand. The second duffel bag wasn't buried anymore. It sat on the altar of Miller's Creek Church like an offering, its zipper open to reveal stacks of cash bound with black tape. Mara stood frozen in the doorway, her eyes drifting from the money to the figure kneeling in front of it. Elena Holt, her hands slick with blood. The church was empty, the scent of candle wax lingering in the air. It was nearly midnight when Mara arrived, drawn by a text message that read simply, "Come alone. It ends tonight." Her footsteps echoed against the hardwood floor as she approached the altar. "Elena," Mara said, her voice catching. "What did you do?" Elena turned slowly, her pale face unreadable. "I did what needed to be done." The blood on her hands wasn't hers. From the shadows at the side of the altar, Samuel Holt staggered forward, clutching his side. His shirt was soaked crimson, his breath ragged. "She shot me," Samuel gasped. Mara's pulse thundered in her ears. "Why?" Samuel's eyes shifted to the duffel bag. "She wanted it. Always wanted it. That's why she stayed. That's why she..." Elena's voice cut him off, cold and steady. "No, Samuel. I wanted to end this. You dragged me into your filth, into Victor's filth. But I was never going to let him win. Or you." The sound of boots on the church steps made Mara's head snap toward the door. Victor Kane entered, gun in hand, his gaze sweeping from Elena to Samuel to the bag. "Looks like I walked in on family therapy," he said. "Take the money," Elena told him, standing. "It's what you came for." Victor's smile was all teeth. "I came for two things. The bag, and the man who thought he could steal from me." He raised the gun at Samuel. Before Mara could think, Elena moved. One shot rang out. Victor crumpled, the gun skittering across the floor. The church was silent except for Samuel's ragged breathing. Mara stared, unable to move. Elena dropped the pistol, her hands trembling for the first time. "It's over," she said softly. But Samuel's laugh, wet, bitter, cut through the stillness. "You think it's over? The people Victor worked for, they won't stop. Not for me, not for you." He collapsed onto the steps. Mara's knees gave out. She sat on the cold floor, staring at the two bodies, the man she thought she loved and the man who had hunted them both. Elena approached her slowly. "You can leave," she said. "Tonight. Disappear. Or stay and be part of whatever comes next." Mara looked into her eyes and saw no malice now, just exhaustion. Without answering, Mara rose and walked out into the night, the sound of police sirens growing closer. She didn't look back. By morning, Miller's Creek would wake to a new scandal. The pastor shot, a stranger dead in the sanctuary, and the pastor's wife sitting calmly beside a bag of blood money when the police arrived. But by then, Mara would be long gone, carrying nothing but the memory of the secrets she had survived. And that's how Miller's Creek will remember it. Whispers of the pastor's fall, a wife's cold resolve, and the choir director who vanished before the dust could settle. But every story has its missing pages, and some secrets don't stay buried. What's your theory? Did Mara make the right choice walking away, or should she have stayed to face the aftermath? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective might just change how others see the ending. If this story kept you hooked, hit the like button to let me know, and make sure you're subscribed with notifications on so you're first in line when the next twisted tale drops. Because in Miller's Creek, there's always another secret.